Hello again! Well, you can really tell it's autumn in the garden, even though there's still quite a lot in flower, like these clematis. They've been flowering very profusely at the moment. And here, of course, you can see the hydrangeas. They're drying up and they're giving these lovely autumn colors. And here's one that's a bit confused because this is a spring flowering plant and it is flowering at the moment, as are the roses. And we've had a lot of rain, but it's quite nice. But it's about 15 degrees usually, so yeah, it's just a very nice autumn weather. But here you can see lots of toadstools, and yeah, I don't know what these are called. They're quite small. That would be I should have put my hand with it because they would have been perfect for miniatures. Or they are. And these, I think in Dutch we call them inktzwammen. I think that's what they're called. Because they have this black substance, and maybe you can make ink with them. Actually, I should try. Maybe I can dye with them. I don't know. I should look that up. But I didn't want to, pick them. We've got a lovely toadstool circle in the grass. And in Dutch it's called a heksenkring, or witch's circle. And that was called that way because people believed that witches or elves, fairies, used to dance on a place like this. And I think in English it's called a fairy circle. But they're toadstools, and they grow from the fungi, the mycelium, I don't know if that's the same word in English, underground, and that's what they grow in a circle. And sometimes there's no more food in the center, so that's why they grow out, and in the middle it will die, and it will grow bigger and bigger, and sometimes they grow like 10, 20, 30 centimeters every year, so you can tell by the size of the circle how big it is. And so mine is at least, the one I have in my garden is at least, I would say 5 to 10 years old, if not older. So, but I think that's fun. And here are some of the flowers that I picked from the garden today. See, roses are still in flower. Clematis, that was a surprise because usually they flower in summer, and now all of a sudden they did, profusely, and now all of a sudden I got a second flush, and you saw in the video, lots of them as well. And still got some sweet peas. The scent is just amazing. And yeah, some really lovely pieces, also very autumn hydrangeas that I've tried. And these, I forget what they're called. We call them lanterns, but yeah, they're autumn colors, but I really like them. So yeah, and it's, I should make some flowers in miniature. I've done that in the past a lot, and I don't know. I really want to start learning how to make them from clay, but as I've said so many times, I'm not a clay person. So the other thing I have to do is write down what I've bought in my little book. So maybe I should start that now. And here's the book I use. I started a new one a while ago because the old one was full. Well, I have been using that for 21 years, I think. So now, when I opened it up to start writing just now, I noticed that the last fair I've been to, well, apart from the Arnhem fair, was the fair in Houten in January. Was it January 2024? My goodness. And then Miniature in Tune this summer. Was it this summer? No, that was also 2024. That reminds me, because I did buy a few things at the Miniature in Tune as well. From Jens and some other pieces, and from the auction. So I have to write those in here as well. I haven't done that. So I usually get pretty bored making all these little drawings and writing it down. But the thing is, you forget the prices and also what you've actually bought. It's better to do it right away. Yeah. And I do little drawings. I mean, it doesn't have to be perfect. First of all, I write down. So it was the DHN show. Then what I do, I take one of my little objects. It's a bit tricky with the camera in front of me, so I cannot really see what I'm doing that well. But it just gives you an idea, and perspective and all that. It's probably not correct. That's not a problem at all. It's just a little impression. It's lopsided as well. Not a problem. It's just so that you get an impression. Oh, this is a really, really bad drawing. It doesn't matter, to be honest. There we go. And then I write down who it was made by and how much it cost. And then I just go down the list and do that with every piece. Now I have to look up the exact name of and I still have the booklet right here. And that's also why I keep these, because then I can look up. Usually, in my case, I usually know where I was in the haul, where I bought it. And in this case, I do know who they are. I just don't know the official name they had. But usually I know where I've bought it, so I can sort of go, oh, it was over here, or it was over here, and then look it up, and then I'll find them. So that's very helpful. So I'll just look those up and continue with this. Well, I finished writing down everything I bought at the fair in Arnhem, and I forgot to. I should have done the purchases of Miniature in Tune during the sales night and the auction. I bought some pieces. I should have done that first, because now it is not in chronological order. It's not a huge problem. And then I thought, well, the next page, I'll write it down here. And then I saw this. I had already been writing down something, the things I bought at the fair in Houten in January of 2025. I forgot that I went there. So last year was not the last fair I went to, like I said earlier. It actually was in January. I forgot about that. And I left the pages open because I did not write down what I bought at the fair in Arnhem last year, where of course I did go and actually made a video about it. So yeah, so it's a bit of a mess now. So it's Arnhem 2025, then it will be Miniature in June 2025, which is July, then January of 2025. So it's a bit messed up. But and then, of course, I still have to write Arnhem 2024, if I can remember what I've bought. I think I may have, I think I do. I think I still know. But anyway, it's a bit of a mess. And I notice here that I used a pencil, which is a lot easier. And as you can see, it's not about how good your drawings are. It's about being able to recognize what you've bought and what then you can look it up. Anyway, I don't want to do it anymore. I'll have to continue some other time. And that's probably the reason why I didn't write it down. And actually, also because I was very busy with that commission for a year and a half. I hardly did anything else. I just, didn't have the time or I just didn't want to do it. So anyway, I have to continue that some other time. Now I really, really, really want to make something. So I thought, this is what I'll make. Now, this is not going to fit on camera, but I'm showing it to you. There we are. That, and I'll take a full picture of it later, is an old printer's tray. Actually, it's an antique one. And I think it's probably from England because it says Stevenson, Blake and Company. I have to look it up. Maybe it's from somewhere. And I don't mind the dust because it's been in my workshop and in between a pile of wood. But this is a very special printer's tray, at least it is for me, because I bought this. This is the first antique I bought. I bought this for 25 guilders when I was 12 years old. So it's a long, long, long time ago. So yeah, this really is an antique, and I've kept it ever since. And I used to have, these little miniatures in there. That was a thing back then. They had little glass bottles and stuff like that, and I had that on my wall in my room, and yeah, very, very, very dusty, but that's okay. I'll clean it up later. And it's got some woodworm, but it's not active. This is old woodworm holes. But anyway, wouldn't it be nice to make that in miniature? So that's what I thought I'd do today, maybe tomorrow. I don't know how much time I need for that. Oh, that's broken. And it'll be quite a simple version, but I think it will be very nice. My goodness. Actually, I'm allergic to that kind of old dust. So I have to go wash my hands because it might start itching. And I might also get, if I'm not careful, it will get into my lungs and I start to sneeze and my eyes start to water and everything like that. The funny thing is I'm fine with dust, like working with wood. Most of the time I'm okay with that. Depends. There's certain types of wood I'm not okay with. I think it's beech or birch. Beech. I think it's beech. That makes me sneeze a lot. But anyway, but old dust, like in attics and stuff, I always have to sneeze. Anyway, I'll take a photo of that, show you that in all of it, and let's start making that. first we measure. Now, let's make a little drawing of that. Okay, I have to get some wood first. And I was thinking of making it from oak because here I have some really nice pieces of oak. That's one that's nice and thin. There's another one. That I could use for the in-between to make the little compartments. Here's some more bits of thicker oak. Actually, there's more here. There's loads of pieces of oak. Actually, that one. There. And as you can see, I've got all these pieces of wood. You don't need a lot. Look at the size of that. I could just use that for all of the little compartments. These two, absolutely perfect. Use this as the backboard. I mean, this grain is slightly bigger than that. These ones are finer. They're actually quite firm as well. But I can use that. Maybe thin it down a little bit more. Yeah. Now I'm going to cut the frame first. So there we are. I've cut a few extras, and so this is for the frame of the printer tray. And as I said, I cut a few extra, and they're much higher than they're supposed to be because I want to do the finger joints there, so they have to fit together. And I think it's easier if I just don't cut them to height and do the finger joints, fit them together, and then make sure that I cut them to the right height, which is a little, maybe you'll see once I do it, it's a little bit easier. It's cheating a little bit, but I don't care. So I'm going to do those on all the corners, just like the real one. And then I have to cut a little slot in here at the bottom so that the base of the tray can slide in there. So, but first I'll cut the finger joints, and I'll have to do that. I'm going to do that on my table saw. So, and I'll take you there. Right, here we are. This is the block where I cut the pieces from, and I did clean it up top and bottom and the side before I started cutting it. And my blade is really, I need a new one. But yeah, I don't have one at the moment, so we're working with what we've got. Now, I am going to cut the finger joints on this side, on the short side, of course, and I'm going to cut them like this. Now, it's almost impossible to hold this, and it's bound to go wrong, if not cause an accident. So what I did was I made a little jig, and this works for me. Anyway, so what I thought is I'll make something to support this piece. So, you know, it needs something that, so it doesn't tilt. So I took some MDF, glued them together. There's two pieces of MDF, glued them together, then cut and sanded the three sides. This side doesn't really matter because it's over here. Square and flat. And then I cut out a little piece so that this piece fits in there really snugly, like that. So I can push it down. Then I have another piece, and I could have glued that on there so that the piece slides in, but it's very tight, so I'll just hold it like that. It should work. Then I have to set the blade to the height of the pieces that I'm working with. So this one is sanded and squared off at the bottom, so that should fit in there perfectly. And then I can hold that with, and I'm also going to use my gauge here, sliding gauge. And how high is that? I think that is fine. So then I'll cut my first cut. Turn on, wait. Where are my ear defenders? Oh, turn on the vacuum as well. I'm going to do that with all of them, and then I'll get back. So now that I've cut all 4, or actually I cut a few more because I had, I like to have a few extra. They're all cut on the same side of the wood on either side as well. And now I want to cut the next finger or slot actually. And I have some offcuts from these pieces which we need because I'd like to be the next cut one thickness of the board, so these are the same, over. So we need to move the fence a little bit so that this moves over a little bit. Now to keep it consistent, I'm using these because they are all the same thickness. And I've put the little jig that I'm using over my blade, so it's exactly in the spot where these were cut. This is the distance to the fence in the jig. That's where they were cut. So now I'm going to move my fence over, put this little piece of wood in there against the jig I made, slide it back, and make sure it's tight but not too tight. There. And now my fence is fixed and it's moved one thickness over. I wasn't recording. Okay, I have to start over again. Where was I? So I have moved the fence a little bit over with this piece of wood. And now if I put my pieces in there, again, same side, facing the, don't turn it round so that the cuts are facing the other, away from the fence. My cuts are all facing the fence, so that way. Now when I make another cut, the fence is moved a little bit, exactly the thickness of this piece of wood and that piece of wood. So the next cut is going to be, I'll show you. So again, I can't hear myself speak with those ear defenders. Again, we're going to do that on both sides of each piece, and make sure that your piece are, the cuts are facing the fence or the same direction you had them before. So I'm going to flip this one over. The cut is facing that way. Put that in there. Turn everything on. And then I'll keep going and do all of them. Again, same as the first one. So I've cut all 4 and a few extra. And now I'm going to repeat the process. Move this fence over. Just going to slide this onto my blade so that they are in the exact position where they should be. Open the fence or slide that in and close it again. There. And now the fence has moved over one more time, and I'm going to repeat everything. So put that in there, make sure it's straight onto the bottom. And the first cut is always a little bit difficult because it has to cut through all these layers. So, it was protesting a little bit. Doesn't like that because it's for miniatures. But you can. It's very strong. The motor is very strong, but still. So I'm going to repeat that, and I'll get back to you. And I'll do that. I won't show you all of it. I'll keep doing that, cut all of the cuts, make sure they're all facing the same way, and then slide it back on, put the little spacer in there, move the fence, move it back so that it's in the next position, and cut until you reach the end. So that's what I'm going to do. And there we are. Done. I think they look so cool. And the other thing is that once you've cut them with this jig, well, then the jig also has the cuts in them. And let's say you made a mistake or one broke or something like that. You can make some more because all the cuts are there. So you can just, you can just position them wherever you need to. And same with this one. So, yeah. But mine are okay. And the one thing I forgot to say, and I said you could use basswood. Maybe basswood is a little bit too soft for cutting such fine finger joints. I don't know. Oak works. Fine oak like this works really well. So now it's time to put them together. Okay, let's see if this will fit. And it should. Just carefully. Now, the one thing, because they're cut all in the same way, and that is not going to fit because they're all the same. So you have to either turn them around like that, and then it should fit. Maybe you have to fiddle a little bit. There. Carefully do a little bit of fiddling so they don't break. Just wiggle it a little bit. And I made them a little bit too deep, so they're sticking out, but we're just going to sand that away. And so the reason I cut the boards wider than they should be is because you have to turn them round, because otherwise they'll just match up and won't slot together. So that means that you have to, well, actually mine is pretty, oh my goodness, that is just a coincidence. Mine is completely even on both sides. Almost. It's like a 1/10 of a millimeter or something like that. But that's not, that's just a coincidence. Usually it sticks out a little bit more, maybe half of one of these finger joints, or half the size of that. So that's why I made them. I'm sorry about my voice. I don't know. It happens a lot. And like I said, I'm not sick. I don't have a cold. It just happens. So the cuts are a little bit too deep. They're sticking out a little bit. But that's why I made them wider, so that I can cut back or sand them back basically to the right height, and they'll be perfect. So then we'll do all 4. So this has to go like that. And you have to be careful so you don't break any. You have to fiddle with it sometimes a little bit. And maybe, there, it's going in. You have to sand it a little bit, but if you did everything straight and careful, it should go in. Here's a few burrs that were in there. Yeah, that also happens. One of them broke off, I think. Yeah, that can happen. There. You could, if one of them breaks off, you could either leave it because it's an antique piece, or you can fill it with a little bit of wood filler, you know. And wood filler also means that if you have some sawdust, tiny bit of wood glue, just push it in there. No one's gonna know. No one's gonna know. They're gonna know. What is that? Is that a meme? Where did I get that from? They're gonna know. I don't know. And then the 4th one, I'll just fiddle with that as well. Then, of course, we need to make sure it fits. Then we have to take it apart again. And then we have to, let's say that again. There's someone at the door. So make sure it's flat on the bottom, and then we are going to cut a groove along here to accommodate the bottom of the drawer, because basically it's a drawer. So, yeah, try that. And just to show you that not everything goes to plan with me either, when I put the last one together, this piece broke off. Now, you can do 2 things when that happens. Motorcycle passed by. Just glue it back on, and you won't be able to see it at all. Or in my case, I need to make the sides and the back lower because the front is higher than the rest. So I'll just cut that off anyway, so it's no problem. Now I'm going to make sure the bottom is the same, so we're just going to have a tiny bit of sanding. Do a tiny bit, and I'll just, oh, it's over there. I'll just move it on slightly on a flat piece of sandpaper. And then I'm going to cut the rebate for the bottom, and I have to cut the bottom as well. And as you can see, the size is good, and it doesn't really matter. It can be a little bit longer or a little bit deeper. You know, it's just a bit of fun. So just lay it flat on a bit of sandpaper, and I've got sandpaper stuck to some plywood, so it's nice and flat. And this is quite a coarse paper, but that doesn't matter. I like that. And then very carefully sand it. You could also do it the other way, but I find it easier to do it like this. The one thing is that you have to be careful with the pressure. So if you keep pushing down on this side, absolutely this side will be shorter than that side. So just go a couple of times, maybe turn it round, go again, and then eventually, and try to keep the pressure the same. Eventually you'll cut it down and it will be flush. Still needs a tiny bit. This is flush. And I always think my fingers are very good indicators. I mean, I can tell whether something is flat or flush. So, and also sometimes if I just want to do one corner, I just let the rest hang over the edge so they don't get sanded anymore. And just go very gently towards the edge. Needs a tiny bit more. I'm just marking on the inside the numbers of the drawers. So there is I'm sure they'll fit together anyway, even if they go in a different order. And I'll just draw a little arrow pointing towards the bottom so that I know where to cut the groove. There. And now I can cut the groove for the bottom. So here it is, and I'm going to cut the groove alongside all of the pieces on the bottom edge on the inside. So that's the bottom. They're all facing the right way, although I have to turn them like that because it has to be on the inside. Now I've put my fence as close to the blade to the blade as I could. I can't go any closer other than I will, touch my fence. And I'm going to have to lower my blade to half the thickness of this piece. And here is a cutoff. I can try that. Right here is that one. Just lower the blade. And I'll do a test run. And because the blade is below the wood, I'm not going to use a push stick. I'm just going to use my finger. And just checking, that's probably very difficult to see, but that looks very good. Let's just test whether that fits in there. It could go the tiniest bit. I mean, absolutely tiny bit to the right. Try again. The depth is fine, by the way. That's also trial and error. You have to just, that is, oh, perfect. Absolutely perfect. There. Great. So now I can use, so it's going to be on this side, like that, turned over, because it has to be on the inside. So perfect. Just absolutely perfect. There. So do all sides again. That one. The last thing I have to do before I change the fence is, this is the back piece. This is the bottom. And if you look at the real tray, the printer's drawer printer tray, you can see that on the back. Can you see that? I think you can. On the back, and here's the corner, maybe it's clearer. The back is shorter, so the bottom of the printer tray goes all the way up to the bottom of the back. While the rest, the sides and the front, have a groove where the bottom goes into, slots into, the back doesn't. So I have to cut off that little bit at the back so that it will be flush with the back, which is that piece. So I'm going to raise the blade there, and it should just cut off that bottom piece. And now the blade is coming out, so I do need the push stick. I don't know what I did with my push sticks. I just use this. And then I can push it through. That was easier than using that. It's just too small. You cannot see whether it's going straight or not. So I've put it all together again. It was a little bit fiddly, but as you can see, the back is now in line, or that bit is broken off, so the top here, this is better. The back is now in line with the groove on the side and the front. And now, if I take my bottom piece, which I did make to fit, so it's not like it fits right away. If I drop that in here, to see which side is the, yeah, it's so hard to see. If I drop that in here, that is flush with the sides and the front. It needs sanding, but there. And it hangs over at the back there, because I cut that at the same level. See, there's some, I have to sand that. But then it should just kind of slide in or drop in and then cut. So I'm going to draw a line. And I can either saw that, or sand it. And I prefer to sand with my disc sander. I'm not going to show you that. I mean, it's just too simple. And I keep checking checking when I'm sanding. I'm going to sand up to the line. It probably has to go a little bit over, but I'm going to sand up to the line, check it again, and then do a little bit at a time until it fits. And the last thing we have to do is cut the 3 sides, so not the front. The front is going to stay this height, but, or, well, I have to measure it, but cut the 3 sides lower. So we're going to make this lower than the front. I think I'm going to go with 6 millimeters. So that's there. And then the front maybe 8. I'm just doing the 2 side pieces first, and I'm going to put the part that's been where I have the little groove. I'm going to put that against the fence. I set my fence to 6 millimeters. And I need my little stick. Now I can cut this. There. Now I have to cut the top off. That's why it's a good thing that I marked it. This is the bottom. Because if I cut the bottom off instead of the top, then the finger joints won't line up anymore. So you have to make sure that you cut the right piece off. So this is the bottom. I'm not cutting that off, I'm cutting the top off right there. There, that should do it. And now I can put them back together again. It should fit. I've made them even shorter because I thought they were too big, so I cut about 1.5 millimeters off each board, each side in height. So, and this corner, that's going to be rounded off, and of course it has to be sanded flat, but because it keeps falling apart, so I thought maybe it's better to just glue them together. Glue it together. Just so that it stays together. Well, that's all done. I made the front even shorter and the back as well. But it's all sanded and done. It looks good. I think the front is now 5.8 millimeters high. So, yeah, I did take off a lot out of, it was 8, I think, before. So, but it's sanded and yeah, it's looking pretty good. I did the little corners and I did that with the Dremel very carefully with a small tip on there. And I very carefully, you know, I looked at what I was doing, just ground it away. And then I used a little bit of my round file as well, just to finish it off. And yeah, looks good. Well, it looks like a tray now. A tray with finger joints. Well, basically that's what it is. Now, I don't know if I even have one of those handles, you know, one of those pull handles. I'll have to look in my stash. I don't think I have those, actually. So I started a project without being able to finish it. But what I'll do now is I'll take all of these bits of wood and cut the partitions to go in there. And the big ones, the middle one is the same thickness, and the rest is a little bit thinner, I think. So I'll have to thin the wood a little bit. Maybe. Is this thinner? Is that the same one? That's a little bit thinner. I can use that. So now I'll go ahead and cut loads of little bits of wood. And I'll cut them a little bit lower than the height of the sides, because I think that would look a little bit better. I'll do that now. Well, I finished a lot of it. After I glued it, I sanded it all down, and actually I made this a little bit shorter again. Everything is just a little bit shorter because I thought it was too big. And I could have guessed that because the real printer tray is smaller. And I've also cut these really thin slats or pieces of wood. And I'm going to use those to form the little compartments in the printer tray. And of course I already put that center piece in there, piece of wood, which has the same thickness as the sides. So this one is thinner. So I'm going to cut those, and I'm actually going to use this cutter, which I don't often use. Actually it's broken, but it's still, that bit broke off, but it still works. I don't use it a lot because I don't like the way, because it leaves an indentation in the wood. So you cut it, and then if you look really closely, you can see that these ends are sort of pinched, and I really don't like that. So I always cut them just a tiny bit longer, and then I sand back. So yeah, it's a bit more work, but I just don't like that pinched look. So I'll just mark it with my pencil, then cut it a little bit. Again, camera's in the way, I can't really see what I'm doing. Cut that, and then I will sand that back so that it fits in there. Well, this is where I'm at now. It is taking an awfully long time. So I'm not finished, and I won't be able to finish it today. So I'll show it to you finished next week, and maybe I'll even have a handle then. So, but you get the idea. Putting in these little compartments or little cubby holes or whatever you would like to call them, it's taking a long time. I'm using all of these, cutting them to size and putting them in. It's taking so much time. And anyway, I won't have enough time to edit the video and upload it and post it, and I really do want to do that. So yeah, this is where I'm going to leave you. It's not my normal ending, but thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it anyway. Until next time.